interview is the most valuable one I've conducted to date. It contains more high-value, low-cost marketing tips than any of my prior 40 interviews. I encourage you to really stick around the whole interview. I promise it'll be worth your time, as my guest is the most innovative legal marketer I've gotten to know. Let's get started and learn the low-cost and free techniques that Dewnya Bazzi has used to grow her multi-specialty firm to 8 figures without paid advertising. Let's go. Hi there, welcome back to the Grow with Cara show. Today we continue our interview series with successful attorney marketers. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working so well, the specific steps these attorneys took to get to where they are. And remember, these are simple steps that you too can follow to get on a similar path to growth. Okay, let's get right to it like we always do. Today, our special guest is attorney Dewnya Bazzi. Dewnya is the founding partner and CEO of the @Law Group, an 8-figure full-service law firm based in Dearborn, Michigan. We're really excited to have her here today. Welcome, Dewnya. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Dewnya, to begin, tell us a little bit about your story. Why did you launch the firm? I believe it was back in 2013.
Yeah. So, gosh, funny story. Like when I left law school, I wanted to be a sports agent or a corporate attorney. Like that was the goal. And right around the time I was taking the bar exam, my brother actually got into a pretty bad car accident. Couldn't walk for approximately like 6 months. And I just watched the entire process while I was in the hospital. Even like they wouldn't operate on him for 4 days until they got a claim number. And the second they knew the insurance was going to pay, they put us up in like a villa suite. You could fit 100 people in that room. I swear, Kara, it was crazy. And I just like watched this whole process and I said, you know, there is a reason that this is happening like in my family's life right at this pinnacle moment where I'm picking my next career path, you know? So I ended up starting at a small personal injury firm and kind of quickly realized that I was kind of like the only one doing the work and showing up to work. And they were really busy. So there was a crazy ton of volume. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm sure like a lot of attorneys out there, like when they start their first job, there wasn't really much mentorship going on whatsoever. So I had to figure it out. And I quickly like learned how to like negotiate on my feet, settle cases, do all of this stuff. And then I'm like, you know, I could probably do this on my own at this pace. And I didn't really want to go out on my own. That wasn't really part of the plan, to be honest with you. The plan, like I love team and I love building a team. So even if you look at my company now, you'll notice that like I'm huge on like team building and bringing people in and uplifting everyone. But yeah, so it just kind of stemmed from there. Started my own firm in 2013 and I guess the rest is history, ups and downs since then, but.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. And Dewnya, you're a personal injury attorney, right? You've handled thousands of PI cases, but why did you decide to grow into practice areas like criminal, family, business, immigration, so on? Why did you take the firm in that direction?
So 2 reasons. One, I'm huge on like diversifying what you're doing, regardless of what it is. I'm also big on niching. So like for me, I'm an expert in my specific field. But like when I found individuals who are passionate about other fields, I didn't want to enforce like kind of, hey, you have to do injury because it's what we have. It's like, no, you're passionate about something. Let me provide the resources and the abilities that like I've learned to scale whatever you're passionate in. So it's really a matter of one, where are the synergies? So like, for example, healthcare compliance is one of the newer divisions that we have now at the firm. And because it has a lot of synergies with PI, medical providers, seeing a gap in the industry, seeing the need for providers to have this compliance work. But it's also a matter of finding the right champions, people that you want to work with that are like-minded, and then finding out what their passions are, and then being able to create space for them and uplift them with the resources you have. So there's really like, that's the method. It's not because of any other reason other than really loving to see people grow and to see people in their innate like passion and skill set.
I love that. How large is your team now? How many attorneys versus support staff?
So we went through a little bit of a shift. We had a lot more attorneys about a year ago or so. So now we have about 8 attorneys. We're about 55 staff members now with virtual assistants, internal team, offshore backend team. We went through a shift because there was a huge change in the law here. And then we also started entrenching automation into our practice. So if somebody would leave, instead of replacing them, we were able to kind of navigate that operational framework to be able to make the attorneys' use of time better and be able to operationalize and automate some of the other stuff. So
yeah, and I want to get into a lot of that automation and those processes for sure. Yeah, that's great. Can you give us an idea of kind of what percentage pace the firm is currently growing?
So we actually doubled in size every single year, but for the last year, because of COVID and the new law change, we were making a lot of pivots here. So we were able to sustain growth, which was really impactful because the law change affected our business about 75%. So to be able to sustain the growth of the firm was huge, right? So like you had to like lean up. There was a lot we had to do in order to sustain that growth. But previous to that, we were able to double in size every single year, which I think like I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, man, that's impressive. What changed in the law? What specifically are you referring to?
So in Michigan, there was a large portion of our business came from personal injury, and there was a big law change incorporating a fee schedule and then also cap limits. So just that, and then on top of it, there was COVID. So there was nobody on the roads. If nobody's on the roads, then there's no accidents, which is a blessing, but also obviously the trajectory was crazy, especially with the law change on top of it. So a lot of medical providers ended up closing down here. A lot of the practices that we did service ended up closing. So we were dealing with like a lot of different changes.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, Dewnya, you're, of course, a highly accomplished attorney, but you're also a standout entrepreneur, right? You're a member of ClickFunnels 2 Comma Club, which I want to talk about. And for those who aren't familiar, ClickFunnels, it's a popular marketing funnels platform. It was founded by Russell Brunson, who you may have heard of. And basically anyone who uses ClickFunnels to grow their business to the 7-figure or 2 comma mark can apply, right? What have you learned from Russell's program? Is that your award behind you? Is that what?
Yeah, it is. So it was funny because, like I said, we were going through all of these changes, and all of my marketing strategy was built on organic growth. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but like relationship building and finding ways to fill the pipeline was all literally organic, like $0 out of pocket ever. It was all like strategy and who you target, then build relationships with them and whatnot. And when all of this started happening and then COVID hit, like I settled as many cases as I possibly could. The courts were closed. I love my job and I love what I do. So like, I didn't want to just hang out. Like I hung out with my kids, hung out with my family, but then in our off time, like, what am I doing? I started learning. I just like dove in and learned everything that I've been dying to learn about, digital marketing being one of them. I got burned by so many digital marketers in the past. So I shied away from that for so long. And then I said, this has to be the new way forward because our time is also limited. So building relationships and all of it, I need to figure out how to do this online. So I came across Russell Brunson and honestly, like, so thankful like that happened, you know, because he's now my mentor. I'm now in his mastermind inner circle and it's amazing. But we learned so much, and it's so funny because a lot of the concepts that I've learned was basically what I was applying organically through my own relationships, not even knowing that this actually had like a framework or it was part of like a massive marketing strategy that like the best marketers in the world use. It was just like kind of something that like I thought I came up with. I'm not an innovator at all, but like I thought like this is just something that I do. But you know, then going through his program, like this is the exact framework that I've used. He's just using it online. It's brilliant. So then I started applying all of these things online, going through his course, and it's been amazing.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit? Let's dive in a little bit there. Tell us about kind of what were the first steps? What does that, kind of framework look like? How are you kind of funneling clients through this system?
Sure. So, I don't know if you've heard of like your perfect avatar, right? Like, so pick your perfect client. If you could dissect them and talk about them, like what would they be? And personal injury, it's really difficult to do that because it could literally be anybody. It could be anybody. It could be, a 5-year-old or a 50-year-old. It could be black or white. It could be, it doesn't matter. Anybody who's in an accident. So with me, I was like, how am I going to compete with these mass marketers out here? I didn't start off with any money. Like, I don't have millions of dollars to pour into advertising. So I said, where are these clients living? Right. So, and then all I could think about is like, where do they go after an accident? And it was like, they're in pain, so they must go to doctors. They must go to pain management doctors. They must go to physical therapy or chiropractors. Typically, you're looking at neck or back injuries. Then I said, okay, maybe if I can network with these individuals, I can find out like how I can generate business from them. So I went to that level. And then I started doing that for a little while, and it started trickling in clients here and there, but it was still not at like kind of the volume or trajectory that I wanted. So then I looked at that level and I said, what is the common denominator between like all of these providers? I said, who's servicing them? Because if I can get to who's servicing them, then I can build another layer on top of it. And then it clicked. It was like all of them have medical billers. Usually they're not in-house. Usually they're third-party medical billers. If I can connect with the medical billers, then they can expose their, relationships to me, and then I can kind of, do that organically. And this whole concept was called like the Dream 100. Russell Brunson calls it the Dream 100, which is basically finding where your audience is living online and then connecting with those individuals. And then basically you guys eat from each other's audiences, right? So just like this, for example, like eventually I want to start servicing attorneys. I'm doing it on a small scale now. I want to do it on a larger scale. So like connecting with people like yourself who has an audience of attorneys that I want to serve, and doing things like this with them. That way we can kind of expose ourselves to each other's networks and grow from there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? So how were you sort of connecting and finding these medical billers online, and then, how are you kind of nurturing that relationship?
It was more so like through, well, obviously, if you know what you're looking for, you can always Google it. You can always Google it, and then you can start building email lists. So
Yeah.
like one of the things like I kind of teach about is like the use of virtual assistants and how to use them. And this is like a huge thing that people don't think about. Like they can literally go online if you identify somebody that you want to target, and build your list for you. So here, look in this, look, California, for example, Huntington Beach, check for all medical providers in Huntington Beach. Also asking your existing relationships too. Who's the medical providers you work with? Like how can you connect me with them? It's always nice to have some type of connection there. It's always easier to get in when you have somebody who knows somebody, just like anything, and doing it that way. But if you do that enough times, something will stick, I promise. Like consistency is key.
Yeah. So then, on top of that, you're building, automation and pipelines. Tell me how technology comes into the fold and how you're really actually generating leads from this effort.
Yeah. So first, because your audience is primarily like solos, let me just tell you, even as little as like 4 or 5 years ago, I was the girl that did not know technology at all. Okay. Like I could not put an equation into a spreadsheet properly. So just so you guys know, it's possible to get there. Because now I'm using like chatbots and automation. I built my own CRM. I built my own software. Like, so you don't got to go to that extent, but just as a point, it's possible. And there's so many resources out there to show you how to do it. So one thing, I would say the most basic thing that we're using automation for that has made such a world of difference is, honestly, our clients are our biggest and most valuable asset. They are the person that we are trying to serve at the highest level. If we are able to serve them at the highest level, I promise it's going to come back like twofold, 100-fold if you do it properly. And one client can generate hundreds of clients for you with the right referrals. So one of the ways automation has really helped is it's really hard to keep up with client communication. Like, it's probably one of the biggest issues across the board. Every attorney wants to care for their client and notify them every time something happens, but we just don't have the time, right? That's like always the pushback. Like, I don't have the time. But if you build in like automation tools that texts them and emails them and sends them a video every time something happens on the case, like that alone will not only help your infrastructure, because the amount of calls that are coming in are going to be decreased. Not only going to help be like fully transparent with the client, so they're going to feel more confident in you, but it's going to help the referrals start trickling in, because those clients are going to feel so confident in you to be able to refer their friends and their family. So automation is huge. That's only like one simple example. I can go into, I could talk about this forever. I love this stuff. I geek out on it now.
Yeah.
But that's like the most simplest example that if you're able to like truly automate that process. And I'm currently building actually a software tool just for attorneys to automate this process. So when I'm done, Kara, I'll let you know.
Please.
So
Yeah, we'll let everyone know. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So Dewnya, you're obviously, you're building this Dream 100. You're building a referral network, right? That you can really count on. Are you, how are you generating those new relationships? How are you nurturing them? Are you, obviously, sounds like you're putting some really, solid automation, communication in place. Are you in person? Are you online? Are you mentioned before this, you're kind of utilizing some Facebook groups. Let's get into those specifics, how all of the relationships are actually being built and nurtured.
Yeah. So, relationships across the board are nurtured by like, it's one thing to have face-to-face communication, which is amazing, but that takes time. So, and there's only so much time in the day. How do you replicate that into your online presence? Through storytelling, through Facebook groups is funny because it was literally like one little nugget that I got from like the Russell program, and that one nugget like made up for like everything I've ever paid, honestly.
Wow.
Because most people don't realize, I don't know, I know I didn't, that like there are very, very active Facebook groups out there. For example, I'll tell you my story.
Yes.
So I wanted to make a pivot from being crazy high volume personal injury practice to, sure, I love the volume, but I wanted more higher value cases. And I wanted to serve the people who were most vulnerable. Like that was the main thing. So like catastrophically injured clients, people are really, really struggling from injuries from an accident. And I wasn't really known as the attorney that handles catastrophic clients. So I had to find a way. I mean, I've litigated thousands of cases. I've tried them. Like, I'm a really good personal injury attorney. My team is really, really solid, right? Like, I know that. I know we can handle it. But how do I get people to understand that? Like, if they are in an accident like this, or a family or a friend, like, we can serve them. Yeah. So because of that law change in Michigan, there were like groups that were really suffering and still are till this day. And that's like a whole nother topic, but suffering because there were some changes that were made to the law without a really thoughtful, thorough process around those changes. So people were really, really affected by it. And there were groups online that were talking about this. So I like went into those groups and I started serving that community however I could, at the protests, through information, whatever it might be. Now,
these were existing groups. This wasn't a group that you were starting. Okay. I see.
Existing groups. So just going into like existing groups that have your the people that you want to serve in them, and just serve them. Just give them value as much as you can. And honestly, people are going to start noticing you as a person who wants to help this type of group of people. And then, you know, like even with our like we have a startup division. So like I tell our startup attorneys or consultants to go into the startup groups and give value. Just give value and it will come back, right? So utilizing Facebook groups, I think was huge. And if you can do it effectively, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes every day. Just log in at night. I usually do it at night after the kids go to bed. I'll log into the groups and just comment, like, give value where I can. And that's it. 10, 15 minutes a day. And it makes a world of difference.
Wow. So how long did it take you to actually start generating quality prospects through those connections you were making through these Facebook groups?
So it takes time. It does.
Yeah.
These things take time, but you'd be pleasantly surprised. Like you'll get a client like here and there. And then once something massive happens, like, so for example, we got a client who we had a successful outcome for. They became like the ambassador in the group. Yeah. So like once you have results and then those people go back into the group and talk to everyone else about the results you have, then that like skyrockets. So it does take time for the initial leads to come in. But once you hit on one, like then the trajectory is insane. So
yeah. And how were they coming in? Were they, you know, they would obviously see you being kind of that resource in the group and then pick up the phone and call the firm? Would they message you? Would they email?
Most of them on like social media platforms like that usually come through DMs. So usually come through your messenger. So you want to make sure you're always checking those, or have like a virtual assistant always checking them for you, and then flagging you if they don't know how to answer or whatnot. I usually try to keep our phone number very visible so they could call if they chose to, because some clients just like to pick up the phone and call. You want to make it as easily accessible as possible. And you want to think about clients who are tech savvy, non-tech savvy, like across the board. So anybody can contact you like really quickly. I usually just say, text me. Here's my cell phone number. Just text me. So I have a separate cell just for that.
Give them as many opportunities to contact you as possible. Yeah. So we haven't really, none of my past guests have really talked much about Facebook groups. So I am really interested in diving in a little bit more here. Specifically to get an idea of volume, you know, to see if this would be worthwhile for, you know, the attorneys watching to dedicate time to get an idea of volume. Are you now getting leads daily from Facebook groups, or, you know, tell us about how that looks?
Yeah, definitely. If you're consistent in a group for an extended period of time, from like, you know, several months, you will start getting consistent leads from that group. There is like a process behind it, and I can talk to you a little bit about like the framework. Yeah. So first, you need to find a group that actually is housing the clients that you want. Don't go into a group that doesn't have the clients that you want, because you might get bombarded with like leads that you do not want to deal with. Okay. Yeah. Number one, once you're able to find that group, then you want to make sure that that group is actually active. Like there's a lot of interaction within that group. So the way to check that is literally just pulling it up and seeing, is it just all advertisements? Right? Or is there like actual communication, engagement, conversations? How often is that happening? Is it happening daily? Is it happening every minute? Is it happening monthly? Because a lot of these groups that have your clients are also sitting dormant. There's not a lot of interaction in those groups. Those groups are not going to be super helpful for you. The third thing is be consistent. Let them see your face, and, you know, whether it be simple likes or comments, you're going to want to be visible in that group and serve them, give value as much as you possibly can. So there is like a little bit of a framework around just the Facebook groups generally. But once you find them, that's all it takes, and then the leads will start coming in. You can even go a step further. If you truly find a group that you want, people don't look at acquisitions of Facebook groups as a thing, but just like you're acquiring through like growth strategies, you obviously like, okay, I just acquired a law firm in Tampa. for example, right? So like I want to grow. So I'm either going to do it with, partnerships, co-counsel, off-counsel relationships, or I'm going to do it by acquiring law firms. Same goes online. If you find a group that is super active and like you want to own the group, then just try to acquire the group.
Wow, I've never thought of that. That's interesting. How do you go about that? You contact the owner and
Yeah, you contact the owner and you just, you talk about it. Hey, would you like to sell your group? Here's my budget. Let's start negotiating. A lot of times you won't get responses back, but sometimes you will. And just like anything, if you're a really good negotiator, you find a way. You find a way to get in, right? So you might have to message them 700 times, but eventually you'll get in. But that's just something to keep a lookout. And it's not that, a lot of them are not that expensive because nobody's really thinking about selling their groups. And if they're not building it for a specific purpose, they just want to serve, they can still serve internally within the group and make some money as well. So why wouldn't they, right? So if they're not looking to like monetize the group in any way, then it's something that they're willing to do.
What's not that expensive? What can you give us a range of
anywhere between, like, honestly, like you can acquire a group for like $2,000-$3,000 to whatever, depending on the group, right? Probably even lower if you see a group that's like just starting off, but they might have like 500 contacts in there. They don't really look like they're engaging too much. You may be able to get that group for like $500. If you tell me I can get 500 contacts that I'm engaging with every single day, for $500, like, no, for sure I can return on that. Even if I get one client, that's already gonna probably double, triple, maybe quadruple the value of what I paid for the group.
Exactly. About how many groups are you active in now, or how many do you own at this point? How many are you juggling?
I laugh because you don't want to be in. So at one point I was in so many groups and it was just too much. Like you don't want to be in that many groups. Like I hyper focus on 3 to 5 groups is what I hyper focus on because they have my audience and they're very engaged. But I have about 20 Facebook groups altogether that I'm working through, but like I hyper focus on 3 to 5.
Okay. What are some of the most popular groups that you're active in?
So like I'm in a lot of like startup entrepreneurship Facebook groups. Like for example, like I just told you, we just acquired a firm in Tampa, Florida. So I just got into the Facebook group that's like Tampa, Florida, Arabic speaking individual. Okay, our attorney out there speaks Arabic. And you could do this with anything. If you have Spanish speaking individuals or Korean speaking individuals, you can literally search like Korean speaking Facebook groups, and then it will pull up in your area, and then you can go ahead and target that way. So it really is just being a little bit creative and thinking a little bit outside of the box. And what is your like value proposition compared to another firm? So language is always a big one. I don't know. Trying to think of some other examples, but like if you think of like your value proposition, what you can offer, and then find groups that you're going to be able to interact with, or maybe even your team. So like I've been really focused on trying to get my team into certain groups that they love, like their hobbies. Like a person loves motorcycles on my team. I'm like, get into motorcycle groups.
Yeah, right.
If you love basketball, get into basketball groups. Like it doesn't really have to be specific to what you're doing, but like these are people that are living there that you love to engage with. So they're not gonna like balk at or not like the fact that they have to spend 10 or 15 minutes in these groups because they actually enjoy it. It's part of their passion. Again, going back to like passion, growth, all of it, I feel like always intertwines.
Yeah, be part of the conversation and let people know what you do, right? Yeah. I mean, Facebook groups, they can really be a way for attorneys to sort of bypass that sort of ruthless Facebook news feed, right? And connect with audiences where they're actually likely to see and interact with the comments, right? I think Facebook really prioritizes those posts from groups and users' news feeds, so you have a much higher chance, I feel like, to show up especially compared to your page posts when you are interacting on these groups. You talk about offering kind of high value, unique content in your group. What are you talking about generally? Are you ever hosting, ask me anything threads, or are you going live, or what kind of content are you providing that's valuable?
Yeah, definitely. If you go live with like questions and answers, it's always a good one, because you're getting like what your audience wants, not just what you think your audience wants. So those are definitely two different things. It's funny because I always think my audience wants something, and then they like hit me with like everything that's opposite of what I think they want. And it's like, do you care? Like, I don't care if I want to give them what they need,
Right.
not what I think they need. So like peeling back those layers, like surveys are always really good. Like ask your audience, like, what do they want to hear about? What content do you appreciate? What content are you bored with? Like ask them, and people look at it as a vulnerability, but it's not. It's that you're actually just trying to serve appropriately. And we can't always think that we know how to serve our audience appropriately. We're not always in their shoes. We don't always know what they're going through. So
yeah, ask them when you don't know what they want. That's great. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So further kind of on the social media thread, you're active on Instagram. The firm is at Law Group. You're at Dewnya Bazzi. How are you generating leads on Instagram? Let me ask that first.
Am I generating leads on Instagram? A little bit. So I generate so initially when we started Instagram, we were generating leads from people that we already knew that kind of forgot that we were attorneys.
Yeah.
That's the first way you generate, is like they're just seeing your face and then they remember you.
Yeah.
And if you weren't there, they wouldn't remember you. So I don't know how many times before that I used to have like pretty close like friends or community members who like I haven't seen for a little while, but like decently close, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about you. And I'm like,
right. The friends and family, that can be a foundation. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's the first way you generate leads. Obviously there's ads and things that you can do to generate more leads, but if we're talking about organic roles, like it's more about like brand recognition across the board. So like, for example, there are certain things that I do that are very effective on Instagram. For example, I might go a couple weeks and then I might just post on my story like, hey, I want to help 5 people today. Text me. Okay. Those posts are crazy effective. Wow. And it's really weird. It's literally nothing. It's just
how often are you doing that?
I do it about like every couple weeks.
Okay. Nice.
I'll post it, or like on a weekend. Nice. Weekends are really good because like people think nobody is available. So I'll say like, hey, I want to help 10 people this weekend. Text me, I'm available.
Wow.
And then they'll text me. And then a lot of, and from there, it's so funny because I think it triggers people like, oh my God, I have this case or I have this matter, but I've been putting on the back burner. Like she's asking, maybe I can help her and help myself.
Wow. Yeah.
Funny.
I love it.
So like simple things worked, but like things that I thought were gonna work, I'm like, why is this not working? But it all works. Like that's like it all works. It just works differently. It might not generate a lead one video for one lead, right. But overall it's brand recognition and being omnipresent on the internet. So like when people search you, they actually find you and they find you talking about the things that you're serving them for. I think that goes such a long way.
Mm-hmm. Where do you find inspiration for the new video topics that you're posting?
ChatGPT. No.
I was going to ask you about ChatGPT actually. Tell us how you're using that and AI in general. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
It just came out, so obviously we haven't been using that for our inspirational on content. Usually my inspiration on content comes from my own experience, like documenting what's happening. Like this week a client came in, I was really suffering, or this week I talked to an attorney about a pain point that I want to help and I could help add value to. Let me talk about that. So usually it's just like documenting really whatever's been happening that week or that month of my life. That's where the inspiration comes from. And I think that's the most authentic way to create content. In the beginning, when I was trying to find my voice, I was like all over the place doing all these random stuff. And it was just like all jumbled and it wasn't me. So you want to avoid that. You can go back to like my old like that when I first started. It's literally hilarious. I literally tried everything. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? This isn't like me, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, ChatGPT is an amazing tool. There are amazing technology tools out there, but for example, if you just want to get an idea about like what topics are trending online for your specific niche, you're just going to ask ChatGPT, hey, what topics are trending about my specific niche?
Amazing.
And it's going to tell you, like, here are the top 10 trending topics. This is what people are looking for. These are the questions that they're looking to get answered. And then you just go ahead and take that and then create the topic from it. It actually can create like blogs for you too. And then you just add your little spin on it. It's really cool. We're learning all of the prompts and whatnot. Like it does take a little bit of getting used to, but it's very, very simple to use. Just like Google, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of those emerging tools that quickly could really have a huge impact. I mean, I think you make a really good point. Experimenting is super important online, right? Not only, what feels authentic for you, but what is going to be performing, what's going to kind of bring in those followers and those leads that you're really looking for. And I don't think you really truly know that until you try, a lot of different things. And if something isn't working, pivot, right? It sounds like that's certainly what you did.
Yeah, 100%. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like, oh, a lot of people test like social media and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work for them. And then they just stop. Like, just like anything, consistency and discipline is the key to success. And if like this is your area and you're not on social media in some fashion. And by the way, like like we talked about, like I didn't really generate my business online for an extended period of time. I just recently started kind of positioning myself online. But if you're not online right now, at like this phase of what we are, there's no way. I cannot, even if you're building organic relationships, you have to have a presence online. So when people look you up, you're legitimified. There's so much competition. There's so much competition out there. Like you have to position yourself to be an expert in your field and to be doing it at a high level because there is so many options.
Yep. So are you putting any money behind either boosting organic social posts or running traditional Facebook ads?
Not really. I've been like soft testing right now. Because like once you hit 8 figures, like to go to the next level is like a lot of people say you can't get to 8 figures without ads. I'm going to disagree because I did. But like to go to the next level, I feel like it's going to be really hard to sustain this growth without doing that. So that's why I've been like entrenched in learning about it and starting to test things online. So maybe on the next one, I'll talk to you about like what's actually working.
Exactly, right.
But I definitely think the same concepts do apply with your target audience and targeting your ads specifically and making them very clear and simple and all of those things. But I haven't really gotten to that point yet, but I'll keep you.
Yes, please do. Yes, please do. Yeah, we have to have you back to get an update on that. So Dewnya, you essentially you've grown your firm to an 8-figure firm using social media, free organic social media, Facebook groups, you're kind of Dream 100, building this referral network. Am I missing anything? Are you spending money somewhere else in marketing or advertising?
Am I spending? Well, of course, like for example, like dinners, events, things like that. Although I wouldn't suggest it. Okay. I wouldn't suggest it. Because it's not necessary. So like if you are going to take that money, I would definitely put it in an online presence right now. I wouldn't do what I did. But like in very specific niches, events do work for the same purpose. So like, for example, healthcare compliance, right? In healthcare compliance, we are doing like seminars monthly for our medical providers. Some are in person, some are virtual. And this like allows us to pour back into them with value, network appropriately, have them network internally within each other because they can also refer clients to one another. So you're building relationships for them. A lot of times attorneys are very transactional and not relationship oriented. And that's the one thing I would highly suggest you like attorneys change about themselves is like become more relationship oriented. And like if you have a client here and a client here and both of those clients can add value to each other, you need to connect them. Like if you don't connect them, you're not doing that, you're doing yourself and you're doing them a disservice. Like don't look at it from just like I'm serving on a transaction here, I'm serving on a transaction here. Like how can I help add value to all of them? And that will return like tenfold because they will be guaranteed to start referring you more business or you'll get their whole book or whatnot because of those reasons.
Yeah, you mentioned when you sort of found Russell Brunson and his program, you had previously sort of been burned by marketing agencies in the past. So were you previously working with SEO, digital marketing agencies to drive organic traffic to the site, or tell me about that?
So I tried a few like companies throughout my, 12 years now. And every time it was like, pay me a lump sum of money and we'll generate leads for you, right? I was like, oh, all right, let me try it. And every time it never panned out. Like there were no leads. And if there were leads, the leads were like not good. And I was one that was like really used to my leads being very, very strong, like quality leads,
Yeah.
So in that context, it didn't really work out for me. And then I was like, there were so many digital marketers out there. Like if I Googled it, like there was like, it was too much, right? And everyone was calling themselves a digital marketer. And I'm like, who's good? Who's not? I don't even know enough about the space. So for me, I like to know enough about a space to be able to know if somebody is doing their job appropriately. That's it. Like, I don't want to do the job. I don't want to micromanage the job. I'm not, but I want to know enough to be able to like, give value if I can, but like also know that they're doing it appropriately and I don't have to be like hands-on. So that's why I was like, I need to learn this stuff. And knowing the strong pivot that we were going to take in the business and knowing that I wanted to start generating online instead of doing everything organically because the growth wasn't sustainable this way. I really had to learn it and like dive in. And it's the coolest thing. I like geek out on it all the time.
Yeah, I love it. I know I can sense your passion for it. It's pretty
Like
cool.
you can see like my books, like .com secrets, Showcase secret, Ask expert secrets. I think I read these books like 1,000 times. They're amazing books.
I love it. So now you are personally implementing these digital marketing tactics and
Yeah,
it's
and we
driving visitors to the site?
Yep, and we do have a team in-house as well. So I
Okay.
have a technology officer and a creative and a communication officer. So we do have like we're building a nice little team on that side as well. But I mean, you don't really starting off, you don't really need a robust team to do a lot of these things. Like it's just taking those ideas and implementing them. And if you don't want to implement them yourself, you can always hire like a virtual assistant to do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're still relying on the ClickFunnels platform, or are you using ClickFunnels landing pages and funnels to bring prospects through?
Yes. Yep. It's the easiest way because it literally just tells the client what they need to know or the prospective client what they need to know. So instead of sending them to your actual website that a lot of times is very overwhelming, this just like tells them exactly what they need. Do you want to book a call? Do you want to, just hire us? So like whatever it is. And we're starting to experiment with different types of landing pages as well and different types of languages. So I think that would work out really effectively as long as you know what pockets, like where your audience is living, and then targeting those communities with your funnels and your ads.
Are you promoting any giveaways or lead magnets on these landing pages, or are they generally pretty straightforward direct pitch landing pages?
So obviously, if you like lure them in with something, it's always best. And it should be like extremely valuable. So like, whether it be like one of the things we use is a guide, right? Like even just like a digital guide, but like the guide is like full of a crazy amount of value. Like you don't have to, it's not necessary, but it's working a lot better if you do add something on top of it that you're giving the potential client for free, whether it be a guide or a book or even just like a one pager,
A frequently asked question or something like that?
anything, and then just test what works and what doesn't, and then you'll start finding like commonalities. Oh, like this works really, really well. This is not working at all. So then turn that off.
Yep. And how are you driving traffic to these landing pages then?
Through our social media, through like the Facebook groups. If like somebody asks a question and it's there, you'll just put that URL in.
Yep, that's great. That's awesome. Okay, so Dewnya, I always like to ask before we wrap up, if a lawyer watching only has time to adopt one, maybe two of your tips, what would you recommend?
I think the first thing that I would recommend is kind of what I talked about in the beginning, is like finding your perfect avatar and then finding where they're living and then going towards like the highest common denominator that you could potentially find and networking with that person, right? Because that's gonna like deliver the most return. And then I honestly like Facebook groups. I can't speak enough about them, but they really allowed me to pivot my entire marketing strategy, where like now everyone looks at me as a catastrophic client claims expert instead of just a personal injury attorney. So like if you're trying to make a massive pivot like that, Facebook groups are really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I'm so glad you were able to share your insight on that. That's really, really great. Dewnya, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. You were super generous. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Dewnya's session included so many great new marketing ideas that I have organized my takeaways into categories. The first category is social media, of course. So number one, become active in relevant Facebook groups. Dewnya credits her activity in several Facebook groups for one, enabling her firm to, of course, keep growing despite an adverse law change, but two, transforming her reputation from a personal injury lawyer to a catastrophic injury expert. Dewnya invests only 10 to 15 minutes a day and $0 outside her purchase of one of those groups. Number two, using Instagram stories to offer personal availability. I love this one. So to fill gaps in your flow of leads and new clients, offer to help X number of people on your stories. Providing your cell phone number, it actually suggests that you text them. So this technique, it's so effective for Dewnya that she's dedicated a second cell phone to the approach. Number three, experiences are your best source of video topics. Your most authentic posts and videos will originate from what is happening in your practice and what's happening in your life, right? What are clients and prospects asking you about? Did one of your cases have a noteworthy event? Talk about it. Did one of your clients make a costly mistake? Did something big happen at home? Letting viewers into your work, into your personal life is the best way to let them get to know you, get to like you, and certainly get to trust you. For the second category, referrals. Dewnya talks about referrals a lot. So number four, take professional referrals to a higher level. Most of my guests land new professional referral sources one at a time, using either online or in-person outreach, right? This is time consuming, but Dewnya has elevated her referral source outreach by connecting with medical billers, specifically who service the medical providers Dewnya wants to connect with. Brilliant, right? Number five, automate your client communication. Dewnya software automatically sends texts, sends emails to clients when milestones occur. This extra communication addresses the number one client complaint, right? It improves client satisfaction, increases those referrals. Here's Dewnya's conversion tip. Send prospects to landing pages, not your website, not your homepage. Too many lawyers send their prospects to their website instead of a dedicated landing page tailored to that specific mention, right? Landing pages will undoubtedly, without a doubt, improve your conversion rate since they don't contain all the distractions that websites do, right? This tailoring is especially important for multi-specialty firms like Dewnya's. She uses ClickFunnels to create her landing page. So do we at James, by the way. Lastly, I encourage you to pay special attention to Dewnya's underlying marketing strategy. You don't need paid advertising to grow. Let me repeat that. You do not need paid advertising to grow. Yes, lots of big hitters have large budgets, of course, but spending sizable dollars on advertising can accelerate your growth. But it's, of course, a costly approach. Dewnya has grown her firm to 8 figures without paid advertising. It's amazing. Spending only on dinners and events, right? The rest of her marketing has cost her next to nothing. So I hope you've added Dewnya's free but effective marketing techniques to the others you've learned about on my show, and hopefully you're experimenting with now. Please join us next week for another episode of the Grow with Cara show happening just the same time next week. Talk to you soon. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.